Heya folks, welcome back. Today I'm going to run you through the Dire Maul Tribute solo farm for hunters. For your recollection, Dire Maul Tribute is a type of run in Dire Maul's North Wing where you bypass all the other bosses and assassinate the King Gordok, thus earning tribute from all the bosses you spared. This was a popular farm on private servers, and it remains both possible and powerful on Official Classic. How powerful, you ask? Well, let's just say that you could farm enough gold for your epic mount in well under a day. Because this farm has so many components to it that demand an understanding of how the mob's behavior works, I can't realistically prepare you for everything you encounter. However, there are many general tips I can give that can help you get started, so these are the things I will cover. The Classic Hunter series episodes related to the Dire Maul Tribute farm are, essentially, summaries of my experience. So if you want to review those, and therefore improve your ability to react to whatever may occur in a given run, stick around until the end of this tutorial. Assuming YouTube keeps its end screen system, then during the outro there should be links to the available episodes. I'll come out with a couple more in due time. There should be one where I blindly learn the farm, and when I'm done with them, there should also be one where I demonstrate my improvised improved Feign Death route, and one where I demonstrate my safe speedrun route. Let's begin with preparation. Before this farm becomes practical, you must level engineering up to at least level 200 so that you can use large C4ium charges to blast open the second locked door. Technically you can kill the first boss to get the key for it, but that is a massive waste of time because he won't be around to provide tribute for you. Level your engineering. Beyond that necessity, I highly recommend bringing invisibility potions, lesser or normal, for an otherwise difficult skip. I also highly recommend enchanting, so you can sell the disenchanted essence of certain items. A wolf pet because its furious howl is extraordinarily useful for this farm, and some mage water for the sake of making the fight against the King Gordok easier. Regarding pets, wind serpents might seem useful because of how quickly and safely they can engage your intended next target, but again, Furious Howl has proven too powerful to forsake. I've heard the ramp pull can be reliably done with Eyes of the Beast and a cat with Prowl, eliminating the need for an invisibility potion, but you'll lose time, flexibility, and safety with your route by running with a cat over a wolf. I must advise against it. Case in point, I get a Feign Death resist here, and I'm able to survive by using my wolf's Furious Howl to yank aggro off me on almost everything, before sending him as far away from me as he can manage, which, as it turns out, is enough. Then I can wait out the timer and get a second chance at Feign Death. More about the route later. All I'm saying is, a wolf is my recommended pet for this farm, so I'll be showing you pulls using a wolf. Improvise with a different pet if you want. Let's move on and talk specializations. There are two specs I'm accustomed to for running this place, but the one I recommend is the non-IFD spec. Although improved Feign Death can help you out if you're just learning this farm, it isn't necessary, because Feign Death does, in fact, not check for resists past a certain range. It's difficult to confirm the exact distance, but we know for a fact that past 40 yards is safe. It's solely based on distance, not line of sight. This means that as long as any enemies you pull are kept far away from you whenever you Feign Death, then Feign Death has a 100% chance to work. You could stay in a traditional rating spec, or something close to it, for this farm, so long as you don't consider IFD necessary. Just in case this is a bug and Feign Death is supposed to check for resists at any range, I will throw out there that you can improve the quote-unquote hit chance of Feign Death by wearing spell hit gear such as the Banthok Sash. It's nice to have on the way up to the king for the sake of added security anyway. Here's an example IFD spec. This includes Sure-Footed and True Shot Aura, so it's a spec you might want to run as a fresh 60. You'll benefit from the hit from Sure-Footed and also from improved Feign Death. If you mess up the pulls, you're more likely to be forgiven. Improved Feign Death is not perfect. You can still get a Feign Death resist, there will always be that small chance, assuming the mobs are close enough to you so that Feign Death still checks for resists. Despite this, it can be helpful while you're new to this and learning the farm. This is an example that's closer to a traditional rating specialization. Rather than put the last 5 points into ferocity, 2 points are spent on pathfinding, and 3 are spent on humanoid slaying. Because I'm more concerned with performing my role in Blackwing Lair over speedier kills in Dire Maul, my current specialization looks like this. The points in humanoid slaying, though applicable to many bosses in Molten Core, are not quite as powerful as monster slaying, which applies to every boss in Blackwing Lair, along with Magmadar and Golemag in Molten Core. I would keep endurance training maxed out because it's better my pet keeps his buffs and keeps fighting. I should not allow him to die in the first place. However, on my current route through Dire Maul, I sacrifice the pet on purpose in order to save some time. Therefore, I've spent those last 2 points on improved revive pet. My wolf is using this setup. The added health from Great Stamina is never present when the wolf is summoned, but it provides an excellent buffer for when the wolf is at full HP. Some people prefer armor, and that's fine. I have mostly shatter resistance to ward against fears and cripples, a bit of frost resistance for the frostbolts and frost nova, a bit of fire resistance for the immolates and fireballs, and a little bit of nature resistance for the earth grabs. The active abilities are Growl 7, Dash 3 for safety and speed, and Rank 1 Furious Howl for the threat it generates. We'll see this specialization in action soon. Of course, this is only what I started with, and I'll explain why. Great Stamina, the T1 and T2 5-set bonuses, and endurance training all stack, meaning your pet can have quite a solid HP pool, but some HP from such buffs will always be missing from the top end. Unless you stop to mend your pet, you will not have that buffer against all damage in general that stamina is meant to provide. I also suspected that there would be more magic damage to be concerned with, but as a matter of fact, the majority of the damage your pet takes on this farm is physical and immolate. So perhaps the best specialization would be something like this. High priority on armor and fire or shatter resistance, a bit of nature and frost, and some stamina with the leftover points. While spells might damage your pet considerably, they're unlikely to outright kill your pet. An untimely daze, on the other hand, would make things extremely difficult. Armor, therefore, is probably the best deterrence against issues caused by RNG, such as daze, and therefore will provide the most consistency. That's all I have to say on specs. Now we'll enter DMT and have a look at an ultra-safe run, which I will do naked to demonstrate how low risk it is. Ultra-safe includes using Feign Death while everything else is at least 40 yards away, thus it cannot be resisted. And I won't use anything special, not even a PvP trinket. When you're ready, head to Dire Maul's north wing either through the main area or by dying in the back entrance and walking inside. The back entrance at the Laris Pavilion leads to the east wing, but because all Dire Maul wings are connected, you can die in east and revive in north. This is particularly useful if your server's population is badly skewed towards one faction and you expect Dire Maul's main area to be camped by enemy rankers. Something I must note before we look at the route is that if you've entered the fresh instance, the patrols will start moving around. Therefore, if you walk in and don't start right away, you will need to deal with strange patrol timing. This includes if you take the back entrance way in. While this mostly affects the area before the first locked door, I bring it up because I will be demonstrating the run as it is by default. That is, as you can expect it to be if you begin after entering a fresh instance. If you die while learning this farm, I must recommend that if you haven't spent your C4 yet, or if you aren't going to be locked out, then you reset your instance before attempting again. Revive in the old instance, take care of your pet, get your HP topped off, then walk out, reset, and start again. You will become more comfortable with the routine faster this way. And one more thing. For those of you who are new to pet control, the act of telling your pet to be passive will return him to wherever he's set to be. This could be either by your side if he's set to follow you, or if you've told him to stay somewhere, use passive to make him return to that stay spot, not stay, which will assign a new location, that being where your pet is currently standing. This has apparently confused a number of hunters, so I simply wanted to make that clear. Now then, let's begin. We'll check out the route first, then talk about the different things the mobs on the way up can do. For this route, as soon as we enter, we're going to turn left and scatter the first brood. Once we jump up on this platform, we can leave the line of sight of this ogre mage and avoid being frostbolted. Once aggro is dropped, a patrol will start heading towards the ramp you need to pass, so we'll move past this next group quickly. We'll drop down here, summon the pet, make him stay, drop a freezing trap in front of him, and then run with him towards the next pack. A Furious Howl will force all targets to focus on the wolf, but because the other mage begins casting at us, we quickly loast it around the corner before continuing towards the center of the courtyard, where our pet will despawn if we're quick enough. Right here, you may Feign Death and resummon your pet so that it can recuperate HP from the last pull while you grab the key. It's also important to resummon it at this time for an incidental skip, but we'll talk about that later. For now, take note of the patrol passing by and squeeze between it and the standing brute to sneak through to the locked door. We can open this door with a key we picked up a moment ago. This hallway contains the first Reavers and Warlocks. We're going to lay a freezing trap here, then pet pull. We'll move past this pack, and there's the Eye of Kilrog, hit it with the Auto Arcane, and then Feign Death. Maybe you've heard horror stories about this place, but breaking it down, don't you feel safer? This is a routine we move through in cycles of pet pulls and Feign Deaths. For this next one, I've waited for the Doomguard to spawn so he won't spawn in during the pull. I like to put a freezing trap down and poke my head around the corner here to aggro, then Furious Howl so they go on my pet. The Warlock wants to walk up to us, so we'll stop to let him, that seems to happen sometimes. And now we'll send my pet towards the other pack we passed already, so he'll be far enough away that he despawns when we near the bugs. Feign Death in this archway. Next, we'll place a frost trap, tell our pet to stay, and target the Reaver behind us. We're going to run ahead with our wolf, Furious Howl to get all the bugs on him, and then have him retreat to his assigned spot to stay. Only when we pass the hanging roots will we order him to attack the Reaver. This will help him stay alive until he despawns, and it's less likely to pull that pack, which could cause problems if the Doomguard gets stuck in the frost trap. Again, more on that later. Turn the corner and Feign Death. At this location you can stand without stealth, and Slipkick will not aggro onto you as he patrols on the west side of the room. When he goes to his northwesternmost patrol point, you can relocate closer to the Reavers. We should move as soon as possible. We'll target the northeasternmost Warlock, get the Reavers on our wolf, and then send our wolf towards that Warlock. When we get to the ramp, we'll be far enough away for Feign Death to work flawlessly, and for our wolf to despawn. You may have noticed the Doomguard following us, but I'll explain what exactly happened there later. At the ramp, we'll pop our invisibility potion and run up. Feel free to walk through things, it's not like stealth where they can see you if you're close enough. Only the eye, if you've left it alive, would be able to see you through invisibility. It's always a good idea to carry more invisibility potions than C4 charges on you, just in case you mess up past this point. You won't need to use a second C4, but you will need another invisibility potion. Here, we'll resummon our pet and move up to the top level. We'll place a frost trap right here at the top of the ramp and send our pet at the Reavers by that doorway. The enemies on the side are pulled, but my wolf's Furious Howl keeps them off me while all the enemies walk through that frost trap. We'll use a C4 charge to open this door. Cling to the right wall where we'll be furthest away from our pet. The wolf despawns, so we'll Feign Death right here. Almost there. We'll resummon our pet once again, use it to pull these mobs out of our way. Oh, and make sure you've got track beasts up at this time. There's a patrol of dogs that could be past Kromcrush. You'll want to know where they're at as soon as you can spot them. They stop temporarily at 2 waypoints in the direction you need to go. Anyway, he despawns when we're past them, and now we Feign Death again. On to the last pull. Although you could pull Kromcrush alone and bring him back to the pack behind us, much like with the second pack in the first hallway, we cannot get far enough away to despawn the wolf. However, pulling both Kromcrush and the next pack is risky because of their abilities. On this route, I prefer to pull both Kromcrush and the Gordok captains, and stay away from Krom myself. As long as these pulls are performed quickly, we can get by without issue. The wolf will despawn as we pass the fire pit, and there you have it, we're at the king. Now we'll review the enemies we encountered and talk about the various abilities we can expect to see from them. The mages can Fire Blast and Flame Strike, as well as Polymorph. I've never seen their fiery spells go out before a Frostbolt is attempted, and the Polymorph is crazy rare in my experience, so I wouldn't worry about it. The Frostbolt by itself is not as bad as if you've been dazed by aspect of the Cheetah as well, so even if a Frostbolt is the thing you'll be hit with, toggle Cheetah off. Every moment counts. The brutes can knock you into the air. This is painful and deadly, and at really bad times it can knock you out of Feign Death. Stay away from brutes. Guard Fengus can charge at you, and this can knock you out of evade spots. However, he is easy to avoid. The Reavers can sunder your armor and mortal strike. Nothing special. The Doomguard minions summoned by Warlocks can Cripple, War Stomp, and Rain of Fire. Cripple is the biggest hassle these guys will give you, but there are ways around it. Also, sometimes they'll stay in your Frost Trap while the rest of their pack resets, in which case if you get up out of Feign Death, they will aggro themselves and the entire pack back onto you. So be wary if you place any Frost Traps, and stay down if you suspect the Doomguard might be stuck in it, and doubt you could work with the ass pull. The naked pull earlier around Slipkick involved this occurrence, and we dealt with it accordingly. The Gordok Warlocks do Immolate, Shadow Bolt, Curse of Tongues, and Banish. Immolate is probably their worst ability to eat because of its total damage dealt, so if there's anything you'd want to blow Scatter on a Warlock for, it'd be the Immolate. Banish would be the worst, but it's about as rarely seen from a Warlock as the Polymorph is from the Mages. I would regard it as more dangerous than the Polymorph because Warlocks are more common, and the local packs are usually tougher to deal with. If it goes out on your pet, it will cause everything aggroed to go onto you instead, which could be fatal. If it does go out on you, wait for it to fall off, and then try to feign death in a safe location if possible. That's about all I can recommend for Banish or Polymorph. The Eyes of Kilrog summon Netherwalkers after a delay. They can go down in a single auto-arcane combo. If you scatter them, get them in a freezing trap, hit them with improved concussive shot, etc., they'll fail to summon the blueberries of death and despawn anyway. Keep that in mind if you're in a bad spot. The Netherwalkers can see through stealth and invisibility, just like the eyes that summon them. They hit hard in melee and do a Shadow Bolt volley on targets fairly close to them on occasion. Do not allow them to spawn. They can force you to either reset the run or perform a very strange pull in order to bypass them if for some reason they are in front of you during a run, such as if you die and have to run back. In addition, if they are in your way on the way out, they remain hostile just like the bugs do even if you have become the king. For your information, a normal invisibility potion allows you to circumvent an eye in your way on the way up Slipkick's room. A lesser invisibility potion demands you walk in mostly straight lines, which works well enough, but will certainly trigger an eye if it's in your way, and if the eye is next to another pack, the pack will aggro onto you too, despite your invisibility. So with lesser, you may be more inclined to snipe the eye. Also, an eye will evade your shots if you feign death before shooting it for some reason. Make sure you eliminate any eye you've engaged before using feign death. Guard Slipkick is able to summon you to his feet, but he has only done this to me if I have aggro on him and I evade him somehow. You can kite him forever as long as you don't evade him. Also, he can charge you, but this is not as scary as his summon player spell. Aside from all those abilities, one more thing I have to warn you about is that Feign Death is a little bit screwy on Official Classic. You need to stop completely before using Feign Death. Let go of the right mouse button too, use the left if you want to move the camera. I didn't really notice the problem too much before trying this farm, but it got me killed a few times while I was adjusting. Even if the mobs are evading on their way to reset, they can aggro back onto you if you're spotted by them. If you get up from Feign Death, be far away or out of line of sight, even of mobs that are resetting. You may have only a small window to work with at times, so be ready. Captain Kromcrush has Intimidating Shout. Because it can force enemies to target you instead of your pet, or vice versa, while CCing whoever got hit with it, it's what makes him extremely dangerous. You should keep yourself and your pet away from his melee range as often as possible in order to reduce the likelihood that Intimidating Shout hits you. In the event your pet does get hit with it, this would be the time to use, say, an Iron Grenade on the ogres and run past them, or Goblin Rocket Boots for a Swiftness Potion, some kind of speed boost that won't daze you if you're successfully attacked. It's always good to have some sort of backup plan in an area of exceptional risk. That's why we use a wolf for this farm. More about backup plans later, we have 2 more trash mobs to cover. The Gordok captains have some sort of instant ranged Shadow Shock attack. It's only ever dazed me harmlessly while they were running after my pet. I've been able to come out of it and run the rest of the way without incident, but it does deal a hefty chunk of damage. They can also cast Fear on you. I recommend staying out of their line of sight as much as you possibly can during the pull. Finally, Gordok mastiffs have a bleed attack, but their most annoying ability is Tendon Rip, which slows their target for long enough to kill you. They are extremely dangerous to have on you for any amount of time. Furthermore, a pack of 3 will patrol around the king's platform. You can avoid pulling them while simultaneously fighting the king, which saves the most time, so that's what we'll be doing. If you do want to kill them, you can pull them and kite them in a similar manner to how we fight the King Gordok. Speaking of whom, let's check out the boss himself now that we've covered how to get to him. Fun fact, the King Gordok has never skipped leg day. You cannot outrun him. So that strategy we used to use on Kronos is completely impossible. Instead, we'll be abusing terrain and ping-ponging the boss and Cho'Rush between us and our pet. On a typical pull, we'll send the pet at the bosses on our way up the ledge. Being at the outermost edge of this arena, the pet nearby the King Gordok will despawn. We'll resummon him, use Furious Howl, and get into position for the first kill cycle while the bosses run up to our pet. From here on, this fight is all about managing Cho'Rush while you try to deal damage to the king for as long as possible. That concept is simple enough, but the abilities you might see on this fight make it more complicated. Let's talk about him and check out some kills. The king's concerning abilities are Charge, War Stomp, and Mortal Strike. Charge is actually useful. It can put distance between him and you if baited on your pet. You can extend the time it takes for him to run down to you, and therefore get more time to shoot him. You also have a generous window to toggle Cheetah off before his charge will actually daze you. As for the War Stomp and Mortal Strike, well, assuming you're stuck in melee with the king for some reason, War Stomp makes deterrence pretty much useless unless you have a PvP trinket equipped and ready, in which case deterrence could buy you some time to maneuver and abuse the terrain a bit to make some distance. Mortal Strike simply hits hard and temporarily reduces healing. It can be scary damage. Ideally, we're wearing damage trinkets for this fight, so a PvP trinket should not be equipped in the first place. Just keep your distance and do what you're supposed to do, and you won't find yourself in that situation. As for Cho'Rush, he pulls with the king and can appear as one of 3 classes. He's the one who changes up this fight, so here are the sorts of Cho you might encounter. First, there's Mage Cho. You can tell he's a mage if he's holding the red gemstone staff. Mage Cho notably hits pretty hard. He spams fireballs on targets at range, and if you're close to him, he might cast Frost Nova or Arcane Explosion. He might also just smack you if you stay in melee. He seems to have some kind of bloodlust spell, but it's not as alarming as his other stuff. In fact, it can be a relief when he resorts to melee, because he'll not harm you or your pet so brutally. For any sort of Cho, keeping him to the right of the king, closer to you, seems like it would help you stick to the king without being hounded by him so much. It seems to be the ideal position to keep Cho in. Mage Cho can be delayed for a while because of how long his cast times are. By delayed, I mean he'll try to cast Fireball at you, and hopefully fail because you're out of his line of sight. If you take aggro on him preemptively or stay out of Los long enough after he's delayed, he'll eventually leave Fireball range and will no longer stop to cast at you, meaning you'll have free reign to maneuver and shoot the king. I don't bother to drain Mage Cho's mana, but you'll surely want to drain mana on some Chos. Here is a macro for Viper Sting that will only go off on Cho'Rush, and you may want to duplicate this macro for Distracting Shot for taking aggro as needed. Some consider him the worst, but I regard Shaman Cho as being equally difficult, quote-unquote, to fight as Mage Cho. Shaman Cho will be carrying a colorful feathered staff. He too can hit you with ranged attacks. Usually he'll use Lightning Bolt, a ranged nature attack, and sometimes he'll fire off a chain lightning, which hits a bit harder. The lightning bolts are not as dangerous as Mage Cho's fireballs. What makes Shaman Cho more complex is his ability to root your pet through the use of totems, and his ability to heal the king. Attacking the totem seems to cause aggro on Shaman Cho for some reason. I've had him pull back onto me when I shot one of his totems, so make sure you shoot him at a time that won't matter. Or have your pet run up and bop him. Usually that works before they get the root off. The totems are inconvenient at worst. They can delay your pet so he can't pursue the king and bait the charge, and if any totems persist as the hyenas are passing by, they can aggro them. As long as you manage them properly, they won't result in you or your pet being killed. The other inconvenient thing Shaman Cho does is the heal. It does about 10% of the king's HP, and Shaman Cho will only cast it when the king is below 50%. This gives you ample time to use Viper Sting to Shaman Cho. Maybe he'll get a heal off or two before going totally but that's not bad at all considering that he's less oppressive than Mage Cho. You'll have an easier time whittling down that HP. On rare occasions, for some reason, the threat is screwed up and Viper will make Cho run for me, but almost all the time you can Viper Cho and expect him to keep running for your pet. So, Keep Viper Sting up as often as possible until he's totally out of mana, and fire one out once in a while when he's super low to keep him Shaman Cho does a great job of keeping himself by spamming totems, but he will eventually recover enough mana to get a heal off if you don't help him a little yourself. I dislike Priest Cho much more than Mage or Shaman. You can tell he's a priest if he's wielding that white cross staff. Let's go through his abilities one by one. I'll mention before anything else that he can heal. Priest Cho's heal does 1/3 of the King's HP, unlike Shaman Cho's smaller heal. The plus side is he almost never does this. I've only seen it once. So I know he can do it, but he pretty much never does it. As long as we deal with him properly, we will continue to not see it. And by deal with him properly, I mean keep him relentlessly vipered. Priest Cho's ranged magic attack is Mind Blast. It has an incredibly short cast time compared to Lightning Bolt or Fireball, and it has no cooldown, unlike normal priests, so he'll be spamming it if possible. If you want to delay Priest Cho by baiting casts, he is the hardest to work with because of said short cast time. However, there is a massive upside to this spell. It doesn't hit very hard, and because Priest Cho can spam it so quickly, you can purposefully tank Mind Blasts to him much faster than Mage or Shaman Cho would be drained. Which I recommend doing so you can kite around a melee mob rather than one that can repeatedly push back your aim shot. Priest Cho will also spam Power Word Shield on any target below 100% HP. If you're a fresh 60, the shield will feel quite strong, but even with a little bit of gear, it can be punctured with little more than an auto-shot crit. The thing that makes it worse than Shaman Cho's heal, I think, is that it's extremely prevalent from 99% to death, and while Shaman Cho's heal is easily suppressed, Priest Cho's shield can go off even if he has next to no mana. I think it adds up to far more damage absorbed than Shaman Cho's heal would recover. You'll need to be very vigilant with your Viper Sting in order to completely prevent his shield from being cast. To that end, I recommend using Viper Sting on Cho before Feign Death, apply again after getting up from your drink but before taking aggro, and apply yet again while Cho is on his way back to you. As long as you're chugging Mage Water, the timing is a greater concern than the mana cost. Finally, Priest Cho can Psychic Scream. If he does this while the king is running for you and you get charged and war stomped, you're dead. If he does this to your pet, he can temporarily move your pet out of position, potentially causing terribly inconvenient timing on the king's charge, or even causing your pet to be charged right off the platform. And because Cho's paving is imperfect, you might take aggro on him a whole 5 seconds early, but he'll walk around that corner and side scream your pet anyway because he wants to. If this is working as intended, the intent is utterly annoying. Whatever the case, those are Priest Cho's abilities, and that sums up all of the types of Cho and what they can do. In the background, we've been seeing some footage from various fights against the King Gordok and Cho'Rush. I'll show you a complete example kill against Mage Cho and discuss my decisions throughout the fight, break it down, and then we'll talk about Serpent Sting, Linked Aggro, the dogs, Feign Death resist, speedrun tactics, AFK and evade spots, disenchanting, chests and books, item and buff collecting, and then we'll wrap this up. Oh, but one more thing about Psychic Scream really quick. If your pet is feared out of position, give it an attack order, then passive again, and he'll run back to the spot he was assigned to stay. Also, even if your pet is knocked completely off the platform, you can make him run all the way back up. You do not need to reset the fight. I couldn't get the king to charge my pet off the platform for some reason, but trust me, it has happened to me before. Maybe they changed it, in which case you need to watch your pet's auto attacks when the King Gordok charges him, or he'll build up lots of threat over the course of the fight. Anyway, I'm simulating the occurrence with Eyes of the Beast here. The main issue would be that he'll despawn if you get too far away from him, so you have to be fast so he can turn that far corner before you turn and run away from the king, who will be chasing you. Without dash or dive available, I'm certain it would not be possible. I have pulled the bosses, and now we'll get into position, between these two pillars with our pet all the way on the left. From here, under normal conditions, no quick shots, no rapid fire, no troll berserking ratio, we will begin aim shot when the king is around the Gordok spirit highlighted by a red square, or the one on the right. If the king is past this point and running towards our pet, we can safely intercept him through the use of an auto shot around the blue square. When the king is running towards you, send your pet out at the king when he's within the blue square if dash is on cooldown. If dash is not on cooldown, you can send your pet at the king while he's around the red square. If your pet gets too close to the king, make him passive for a moment before hitting the attack button again to make sure the king stalls himself as much as you can make him. And please remember that you cannot bait a charge if the king has gotten around the corner and charged your pet already. It will be on cooldown. For the sake of ensuring this works and the king turns around when you want him to, be mindful of if your pet hits the king while you're trying to bait charges. If your pet causes enough threat, you will not be able to take aggro with a single auto shot, not unless it crits. If something gets around the corner and out of your line of sight, fire multi-shot on the spirit outlined in yellow. Using its firing logic, it should hit whatever's smacking your pet and spare him any further damage. So, as you might have noticed at the start there, I was a touch late on the aimed shot and the king charged my pet, so it was on cooldown for the first kill cycle. We wait for Oriox to pass Mage Cho before popping FD because we don't want Mage Cho to Frost Nova him. Cho is in a pretty bad spot, but we'll swap him over to the right and not delay him because we want to get the best use out of our rapid fire. You can save rapid fire for when the king is at low HP since he slows down. The fight shouldn't last over 5 minutes once you're used to it, so it's not like you need to pop it as soon as possible. Moving closer to the center of the arena, we have less distance to cover compared to the king, and can keep up more easily. We'll eat a fireball here, and then Feign Death. Getting back into position, we're ready to initiate the next kill cycle with an aimed shot. We get 2 aim shots off, but the king doesn't charge my pet, so I'll take what time I've got to mend Oriox up a bit. The king was surely close enough where he could have possibly resisted Feign Death, but he's still far away from me and I'm near an edge where I can drop off, so it would not have killed me if it did resist. We'll ask Cho to wait right there before initiating with auto into aimed. We'll keep out of Cho's line of sight while attacking the king. I don't think I have time for another aim shot, so I fire out the arcane shot instead, then Feign Death. Hunter's mark has fallen off, we'll reapply. Initiate with an aimed shot. Cho is very far to the left of the king now, so we'll stay ahead of him. Not quite enough time for the aim shot, pet was way too far behind for the charge bait, so we'll lose that one. Feign Death is on cooldown, so I'll fall back to the ledge, abuse the terrain to wait it out, then pop it when it's ready. We're gonna run around the center to get back up, get Cho to the right of the king this time. My pet has aggro, but he can survive a bit of damage. With Cho out of our hair, we can freely attack the king. Looks like we'll kill him right on time. The fight is essentially that. The pattern of damage, reset position, damage, reset position. Eventually, the king dies. It'll take some experimentation and experience to get used to keeping up with the king. Keep at it, and the nice kill cycles will come to you naturally. Pick up your loot off him, talk to Captain Kromcrush, and then talk to Mizzle for your tribute. For some reason, you won't get a full tribute chest if you don't talk to Kromcrush first. He's not counted otherwise. I'm not sure why that is, but it is the case at this time, so don't forget. Now, during the fight, you may have noticed that I had used Serpent Sting only after my first aimed shot went out. Technically, as long as you keep away from the king and don't get yourself back on his threat table, you could Serpent Sting before Feign Death. It can keep ticking and would not contribute to your threat on him because he hasn't noticed you're back up yet. If you're confident doing this, I recommend trying it. As a side note, I've heard that the improved Serpent Sting talent will make it so that one tick of Serpent Sting and your max rank arcane shot will kill an Eye of Kilrog. If true, this could be useful for saving time, since you'd otherwise have to stop for your auto-arcane combo, or blow your scattershot, but it would require a more dedicated DMT farming specialization. Another weird behavior is that if you have the 5-piece T1 or T2 set bonuses active and the King and Cho pull not quite at the same time, they will have linked aggro. Some people have learned to fight them this way and even prefer it, maybe it's ideal for certain Chos, but I don't really like it. To eliminate this behavior, use Eyes of the Beast, stand your pet behind the bosses, and they'll pull at the same time after a delay. Cancel Eyes of the Beast and your pet will despawn if you're standing at the right spot already. Failing this, Feign Death to reset them, and then try again. You don't need the T1 set bonus to use Mend Pet, but you do need to be very precise with your own positioning and your pets in order to cast Mend Pet without the 3-piece T1 set bonus. Luckily, T1 isn't too hard to come by, so pick up 3 pieces as soon as you can, and you'll have an easier time in here. Regarding the mastiffs, you can completely ignore them as long as you position yourself correctly as they pass by. If they aggro onto you and don't proxy pull via the king or Cho getting close, you can feign death and they'll drop off completely, not bothering to go for your pet. However, if they are proxy pulled by the king or Cho, which can happen from pretty far away, they will head up to join the ping pong and they can make the fight interesting. Oddly, the linked aggro behavior can occur with the dogs too. I have pulled the king and Cho unlinked before, and also dealt with linked dogs during the fight. Just pointing that out. In terms of dealing with them during the fight, you could kill them if you want. Priest Cho can shield them, Shaman Cho can heal them, but they're pretty squishy. If you keep them together, you can multi-shot them all. If you don't really care for that, you can simply yank aggro on them by popping certain things of your own. A lily root from your Lay of Lilies will work. Some kind of potion will cause threat. A well-placed multi-shot can hit all 3. Using Mend Pet can pull them back to you. Or reapplying True Shot Aura can also bring them off your pet and back to you. But remember, this only happens if they're on your threat table, so make sure you stand close to the ledge so they can see you before they reach your pet. Assuming you keep them under control, you'll be okay. Feign Death resists are a thing on this fight. With the king more than Cho, you do need to keep on the move and be more attentive to your terrain abuse. You can use his charge to keep distance if you're feeling brave, but this does carry the risk of being war stomped, although it is rare they'll happen simultaneously. Similarly to what you're seeing here, you can finish the king off from low HP if your pet dies near the end of the fight by kiting him in such a way. When he gets low enough, he won't be able to keep up at all, save by charging you. Cho is just run around, lows his casts, make sure you take aggro on the king before he's back on your pet, no reason to die to that. Just don't get frost nova'd, earth grabbed, or side screamed. And remember, if you feign death while they're 40 yards or more away from you, they can't resist it. Feign Death resists can also occur on the Gordok spirits, which amounts to little more than preventing you from drinking. To avoid problems, make sure you're staying hydrated with mage water even if you're not low on mana when you FD. By the way, you can eat on the King Gordok fight to restore HP as long as you don't get in combat. You can eat behind one of the pillars so the spirits don't see you, or in the trench below the ledge upon which the pillars stand. You might want to keep some Alterac mana biscuits on you for heavy-duty HP recovery during the king fight. That's about all I have to say about the King Gordok fight. Let's talk about some speedrun tactics. At some point, if you farm this enough, you'll stop caring about gold unless you're one of those nuts who doesn't spend every copper he gets as soon as he gets it, and maybe by then you'll want to bump up your personal best time. Speedruns for Dire Maul Tribute are measured from the moment you enter the instance to the moment the king drops dead. My personal best time at this juncture is 8 minutes and 28 seconds, but the world record is, if I'm not mistaken, still 6 minutes and 33 seconds, held by 0G. The run was very impressive and it's up here on YouTube, so I recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. 0G is a DMT nutcase who practices constantly and I believe has tens of thousands of gold, so his runs have a speedrunner's discipline. Quite the spectacle. I'm not really big on speedruns myself since I can't manage the precision required, and my 8:28 run was quite sloppy in places, but I think recording your personal best time is a motivator to farm and it can add some fun to the experience. And besides all that, learning to adapt your available tools to make your run faster can help you farm gold more quickly, which gives you more time to do other things. You can bring swiftness potions, goblin rocket boots, a gnomish cloaking device, crystal yield, spell reflectors. If you're looking for easy access, high impact stuff, I recommend iron grenades and a PvP trinket. You can use the PvP trinket to get cripple off you, or tendon rip, or war stomp, and iron grenades are a fantastic safety net. I highly recommend them. There are some speedrunny pulls that are actually still regarded as safe. So for my friends who are looking for both consistency and speed in your runs, these sorts of pulls are for you. Remember the patrol near the first locked door I asked you to remember? Sometimes it can appear in front of the door. That's why we summon the pet after feigning off the prior pack. If you don't care to wait, pull it back like any other pack. The reason this patrol is sometimes out and sometimes not has something to do with the scuffed patrol rendering. If something is not in your sight, it might not patrol at all. This can add some variety to your runs, maybe affect your paving, so I hope you remain aware of this and work around it. Here I pet pull the first pack in the hallway, then move past the second with rocket boots and a shadow reflector. An iron grenade delays them. The cripple was not reflected as it never went out, but the reaver is the one in range. As I pull the bugs, I resummon the pet, howl to get them off me, concussive shot the reaver since if it's in range it can resist Feign Death, and then I Feign Death just around the corner. The pet is sacrificed during this pull. After this, do the pet pull with the reavers to the warlock. Snipe the eye if you want, keeps it very safe. Aspect of the Cheetah works for this pull as well. Just load the warlock and doomguard in the prior pack as quick as you can and be on top of the concussive shot at the end. Also, there's a warpwood pod in this area which can spawn whiplashers if you get too close. Cling to the left wall or go through the middle. The left wall is preferable if you need to load the baddies chasing you, but the middle is perfectly fine if you're only pulling the bugs. Here's another example. We're going to pull from the blast door all the way to the king. The pack on the side didn't pull amazingly since the reaver is 59. If it's 58 you can pretty much ignore it 99% of the time. 59 is very likely to pull. Anyway, we've gotten through the locked door, despawned the pet, resummoned, and we're going to mend here so that the reavers behind us are on me, not on my pet. I'm going to body pull the next pack so I'm more likely to eat the cripple. It doesn't even go out, so I'm going to wait here for the warlock to move further up. And note that I did not use dash when making the pet retreat. I'm going to need it for this final section. Mend again. Get the pack behind us on me instead. We're going to move through Kromcrush and the captains. The dogs are in the way, so I pop off the iron grenade. And here's where this pull is quote-unquote safe. I tried to go for the evade spot right here, but I missed it, so I Feign Death. The dogs are kind of low level, so even without improved Feign Death, they're unlikely to resist. If you don't want to risk your pet getting dazed, try using Viper Sting to pull ahead of your pet. With Furious Howl, the mobs you pull with Viper Sting can be aggroed onto your pet while they're far away, and then you can return your pet to its assigned spot quite safely. Although I've had Viper Sting pull Cho'Rush despite my pet having howled on the fight, rarely. It seems to be a problem exclusive to the fight. The King Gordok and Cho'Rush have other strange aggro behaviors, so it may very well be another glitch. In the event I've mistaken and Viper Sting will in fact possibly out-aggro your pet's howl on trash on the way up, you'll surely have scattershot, iron grenades, and other backup plans ready to take care of the loose ad. Limited invulnerability potions could protect you if the intimidating shout goes out on your pet, but it's unlikely to be useful considering how you pop an invisibility potion before Kromcrush. All in all, an iron grenade or goblin rocket boots would be more likely to be useful here. The reason I don't recommend gnomish rocket boots is because if they fail, they'll disorient you. Goblin rocket boots may outright explode and become useless, but you can much more easily survive that. Besides, it's not like we can't afford it. Lifestone is another useful trinket you might want to pick up. It's quite cheap for an epic, probably cheaper than the Lay of Lilies. It doesn't share cooldown with your Lily Root or major healing potions, so it can be nice to wear if you have nothing more precise to work with, like spell reflectors. In combination, those consumables and a Lifestone could effectively double how much HP you have to work with in a really bad situation, and that's before you get any crits. Viper pulls or risking daze, this pull is usually chanced somewhat anyway because the dogs are often in the way if your speed is consistently good. You're very likely to see them in a place like that. If you want to make this pull totally safe, as in everything is guaranteed to drop off you afterwards, I recommend you practice getting into this evade spot right here. You just walk into it, glitch on the wall, and everything behind you stops. Easier said than done, so practice it a bit after you've killed the king and everything is friendly. Speaking of evade spots, let me talk a little bit about where it's safe to go AFK and where you can evade. First, there's the spot we use on the route itself quite regularly. You can AFK behind one of the pillars here indefinitely, although I don't recommend AFKing at all in this section because the patrols through Fengus Courtyard are the worst if they get desynced. You can evade some enemies here, but the mages can cast at you, nearby brutes could knock you off, or Fengus could charge you off. Overall, the most unsafe evade spot. You can AFK for a short time in Feign Death, but it does kill you near the end of its duration for some reason, so I don't recommend doing it often, or for long. There's an evade spot up here if you can manage the jump. It'll take some practice to do it reliably every time, and I do recommend practicing this jump. You can AFK here indefinitely as long as you're behind the pillar so Slip doesn't see you. He's the only one who'd be able to summon you down. Yet another evade spot is up here by the blast door, but it's not a very practical spot. You're more likely to use it after the king is dead, assuming you didn't pull Slip, if you're trying to get someone buffs or an item and want to shake the first set of Reavers. The evade spot you can auto-run to here is also an AFK spot. I know that seems weird, but it really is. You can safely AFK anywhere in the trenches surrounding the king's platform. The dogs will not patrol past you. Finally, there's an evade spot past the left ledge with all the Gordok spirits. Oh, and remember, don't start the patrols in the next instance until you're ready. If you're going to AFK at the very start, do it in an instance you plan to reset. Keep it easy on yourself. If you have the Crescent Key, you can head into the library from DMN. This is another safe place to AFK, and I've heard that another book spawn can be found in here, but I've never seen it myself. Notably, the vendor in the library can not only provide you with Morning Glory Dew if you somehow lose your mage water and can't find a mage around Dire Maul to replace it, but he can also repair your gear. So long as you come prepared, you can stay out here for a very long time. Pity there's no mailbox nearby, but if you don't want to leave for long, you can always head to Feathermoon or Mojache, mail out your potions and enchanting materials, and take more meat, arrows, grenades, invisibility potions, C4, whatever, out of your mailbox, whatever you send yourself ahead of time. Perhaps it's less of an issue for the Horde than the Alliance, since you guys have Orgrimmar nearby, but we on Blue Team frequent Ironforge or Stormwind, so AFK flying back to Feathermoon or Thalinar isn't so easy. That's why I get a portal to Darnassus with my mage water, so I can do just that. And since we need engineering to solo farm this, there's always the Everlook teleporter if you're a goblin engineer, which you should be because Gnomish can get hacked. Regarding disenchanting, it depends on the value of items on your server. Large brilliant shards are floating around 2G on my server, Herod, at the moment, so I've been disenchanting any blues around 2G. Greens can disenchant into illusion dust, eternal essence, or rarely, large brilliant shards. Armor greens tend to have around a 20% chance to be Eternals, while weapon greens tend to have around an 80% chance to be Eternals. I like to see what'll happen, keep things interesting, so I'll disenchant every green. If you want to take your chances only on low value greens, then I'd recommend you vendor the Hyena Hide Jerkin, Shaggy Leggings, and Skull-Cracking Mace. Maybe the Carrion Scorpion Helm too. Disenchant everything else. You can also occasionally find bonus greens off the king or in chests around the instance. There could be a book spawn right behind Cho'Rush under the ramp in Slipkick's room, or in this corner to your left as you're leaving the first hallway. Chests can spawn behind this pack near the blast door, behind this pack in Slipkick's room, or in this nook near the last book spawn. Although I've only ever seen locked or unlocked chests, my trusted friend Chrissy has reported once seeing both a locked and unlocked chest in the same instance. So I am reporting this as an extremely rare but confirmed occurrence. If you see a locked chest earlier on, keep checking spots and maybe you'll see an unlocked chest. Stomper Kreeg sells useful spirits, including volatile rum, which is a reagent used in goblin rocket fuel, so you might want to pick some of those up. If you don't want to vendor anything, look for chests or books, or pick up buffs, invite somebody to group and have them reset while you're logged out. Log back in and you'll be in a fresh instance. Moving on to our final topic for today. If you need to get someone up to the chest for an item they might want, or to Mizzle for DMT buffs, here's what you do. Most of the enemies are not hostile once the King Gordok is dead, so we'll cover the unavoidable trash. The guards and Captain Kromcrush always remain hostile. You can tell if something's hostile if you mouse over it and see the cursor change to a sword. Be vigilant about them, and you won't have any problems. The bugs can be easily cleared out with 2 people, even if you're BMMM and you're in the company of a rogue. If you're survival, you have better chances of double trapping, but even if that doesn't work, just pop deterrents and wait for the explosive trap to tick them down to death, while you and your pet melee the bugs one by one. If worst comes to worst, pop an iron grenade, a lily root, or major healing potion. That's what we keep them around for. I mean, the major healing potions are kinda cheap on my server, so I don't mind popping them willy-nilly. The major mana potions are the ones I want to save. Anyway, the point is, wait for a friend if you're BMMM so you can quickly and easily clear him out, and if you're at least part survival, you should be just fine soloing. If you really want to solo the bugs as BMMM, I'd say you should stack them up with your pet first, then volley on them all, followed by leading them into an explosive trap, and if they're still alive, throw out an iron grenade. If you get the Arcane Shot trinket from Blackwing Lair off Razor Gore, it's genuinely useful for clearing out the bugs. You can throw in the Empowered Arcane Shot following your volley, while they're all stacked up and at range. Once the bugs are gone, you can drop your king buff if you have it by logging out and back in. Head around the corner, pulse slip if needed, it doesn't matter as long as you don't go to an evade spot, but most importantly, scatter Concussive the Reavers and get up the ramp. For your information, Slipkick can be easily passed when he's at his northwest patrol point, when he's at the eastern end, or when he's passing by the right side of the ramp, coming from the Reavers and going up. You can also wait in the northwest corner of the room and pass Slip when he heads east. There are 2 more hostile Reavers at the top here. Scatter one, wing clip the other, concussive shot the one that comes out of scatter to keep him even, and don't forget to turn pack back on so you can get to Mizzle faster. Once your friend talks to Mizzle, you can drop the trash. On raid nights, I clear a DMT early in the day and AFK in there to hold down the instance while my guildies, whenever it's convenient for them, come and get buffs. Escorting every single one of them up to the king is a hassle though, so here's what you can do to save yourself some trouble. First, tell your guildies not to talk to Slipkick or Fengus when they're in a bad spot. Several times I've had Slipkick stopped just under the ramp, forcing me to un-AFK and pull him out of the way so my guildie could get up there unharmed, because, you know, they stop when you talk to them to ask for buffs. Slipkick is usually the biggest hassle for noobs, so if you want to trap him and idiot-proof your instance for folks running to get buffs, bring a thorium widget and some frost oil and get him in the trap. This is especially useful if you're selling buffs to pugs, which is pretty profitable on raid nights, so consider it. However, be warned that Slipkick cannot be talked to while frozen if you get him in combat. You must allow Slip to patrol into the trap, or your reagents will be wasted. You must cancel your buffs before they can be refreshed. Note the difference between when I have it already and the green cast animation is all that occurs, and when I don't have it and the yellow glow appears over me. Anyway, you should also warn your guildies about the eyes. If someone spawns blueberries on the way up, they're pretty slow, so kite them while your friends focus them down. Do not allow your friends to take aggro on them, because if they try to tank them, they're going to get mauled. The blueberries, again, just like the bugs, will remain hostile even after the King Gordok is dead. So, it's imperative that you clear any that are up out for safety. Also, the eyes tend to be non-hostile like most of the other stuff in here if they are up when the king dies. If you want to make it even easier on your guildies, either skip over the eyes on the way up or AFK at the king for about 15 minutes before killing him. The Reavers can be kited up to the king's arena and killed in much the same fashion as the king. Or you could do this kite path whenever your friends are ready to help you out. You could do it alone, but I don't really recommend it because it's quicker with at least one other person. Focus down one target at a time so that you can keep threat, and use the time it takes to get up to the arena for more threat. Once the Reavers are down, it'll be some hours before they and the bugs respawn, so take it easy and go do something else before raid. This is not difficult to do, and your guild will love you for getting buffs for them. Plus, it'll speed up your raid night, make it smoother, so it's convenient for you too. About the buffs, Slipkick gives spell crit, Fengus gives attack power, and Moldar boosts stamina. Fengus buff applies only to melee attack power, so it's nice for melee weaving, or for smacking those eyes with Raptor Strike. But mostly the stamina buff is the useful one for us, so try to pick that one up at least. You'll give less of a heck in raids and have better chances on your next run of DMT. Besides using the near infinite gold you get from this farm on gear for your ults, you can run yourself through for gear from the tribute chest. Just have a friend invite you and your ult to the same group, do DMT as normal, and when something you want drops, log onto your ult, who should be right outside DMT, and walk on in. You can even clear out the bugs and reavers if it'll help your potentially low-level ult get to the tribute chest. The minimum level to enter any Dire Maul wing is 45. You can use similar means to get a friend who needs to max his weapon skill up to the spirits. Do not feign death or talk to Mizzle after the king is dead, or any spirits aggroed onto you will become neutral. You must pull the hostile reavers out of your friend's way along with the bugs if necessary, and your friend must stay far enough behind you that he does not get in combat with the targets you're trailing. Once he attacks the spirits you've kept in combat with since the fight against the King Gordok started, you can feign the other stuff off you. Pretty interesting just how much you can do with this farm, huh? I had a fun idea to get a non-stealthy up to the king before the king dies, but it involves speedrun strats and the careful use of evade spots, so I'll let you know if I ever manage to find someone crazy enough to attempt such a thing with me. And, with all of that said, that is the Dire Maul North Farm. Like I said, there was a lot to cover here, and there's still more you'd have to learn through experience, but hopefully this has prepared you to start the farm and given you the necessary tools to improve your farm if you've already begun. If you want to see more of DMT, then episodes 52, 54, and 55, of the Classic Hunter series that is, should be DMT episodes. They will be linked at the end of this video as soon as they're available. Enough of that for now though. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I try to get back to folks, assuming YouTube notifies me of comments. Check the description for more links, like a skip list, if you want to go back and review anything in this tutorial. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!